Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going back to something we haven't done for a little while, and we are looking at every Regigigas card we have ever had in the Pokemon trading card game. We haven't done an every card ever for a little while, so I thought, you know what? Time we went back, and I love me some Regigigas. So I thought we would start there. And we actually had two Regigigas in quick succession, because Regigigas made his debut in Legends Awakened, which was released in the UK, US, Europe, etc. on August of 2008. And we had two Regigigas in Legends Awakened. The first one, number 15, it's not particularly great. The ability says Regigigas can't attack until your opponent has 3 or fewer prize cards remaining. Yowza. Because that's not good. And I know it's kind of thematically linked with a video game, don't care. That's not good. As for Water Fighting Metal Colorless 120, I mean, to be fair, back then 120 was a decent amount of damage, but that is a horrible energy cost. Oh yeah, and if your opponent's active Pokemon already has any damage counters on it, the base damage is 40 rather than 120. No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not a good attack. But the second one actually did see a fair bit of play. The Pokeball said, when you attach an energy from your hand to Regigigas, remove all special conditions from Regigigas. So you had a built-in way there to make sure you could avoid all special conditions. We then had an attack, 3 colorless energy, much better attack cost. Flip a coin. If heads, this attack does 60 damage plus 20 more, and does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. 60 for free is alright, 80 to the active, 20 to the bench for free colorless on a basic. That's a decent attack. And we're going to look at Regigigas level X in a moment. This is one of the 2 Regigigas that were played along with the level X. It was a very good card. Speaking of which, the next Regigigas we got was in Stormfront. Now, we did get a couple here. The non-level X was again not particularly great. It's still a basic Pokemon, it's still got large HP, although 100 isn't as big as some of these. It's still got a huge retreat cost of 4. I'm not going to point this out for all of them. Regigigas is always a basic, always colourless, always got a huge HP, always got a huge retreat cost. Now, if you have Regirock, Regice and Registeel in play, the attack cost of Regigigas' attacks is 1 colourless less. But we start off 2 energy 30, water fighting metal colorless 60, or you can do 140 to yourself. Not out and out garbage with the level X, but certainly not the one I would have chosen. The good news is that the Regice from Legends Awakened was a great card that forced your opponent to move their active and saw a lot of play in Regigigas decks. The Regirock from Legends Awakened was a good card that saw play in other decks, it accelerated fighting energy, but the Registeel, ladies and gentlemen, was just plain bad. So no, we probably weren't ever going to use this. But in the same set in November 2008, we got Regigigas Level X, which incidentally was released as a tin promo in the same month. And Regigigas Level X was one of the best decks in the format for quite a long time. This was the pinnacle of the Regigigas age. Now, it was a level X, so you had to get Regigigas in the active and then level X. And of course, the rule back then was Regigigas level X has the same name as Regigigas, so you could only have 4 in combination of Regigigas and the level X. But it was amazing. The Pokepower says once during your turn, you may choose one of your Pokemon, and that Pokemon is knocked out. Then search your discard pile for up to 2 basic energy cards, attach them to Regigigas, and remove 8 damage counters from Regigigas. So okay, you had to KO one of your Pokemon, but this will be played with a bunch of stuff like Mesprit, for instance, which was just ability lock, and that was amazing incidentally, because what you would do is just constantly play Mesprit down, use this to ability lock your opponent, and then KO it using the Pokepower to heal 8 damage counters and accelerate 2 basic energy. And yeah, fine, you had to keep giving up prize cards to do it, but as long as Regigigas didn't get KO'd, it really didn't matter. And then the attack for this same cost we keep seeing, water, fighting, metal, colourless, 100 damage, discard the top card of your opponent's deck, and then discard a random card from your opponent's hand. But you cannot use this attack the following turn. So those attack costs we saw on some of the previous Regigigas were not quite so bad, because once you got the level X rolling, you could get the energy out, and level X's could use the attacks of the lower card. This was a great, great deck. And yeah, sure, it had some issues against Machamp, for argument's sake. And at the time I was playing Don Fan, I loved playing against Regigigas level X, although one of my biggest regrets is never taking Regigigas to a tournament. That makes me very sad. This was one of the very best decks for a long time, and I don't think I've actually made a video about this deck, so you can expect that one quite soon. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the height of Regigigas. But please don't stop watching, there's other Regigigas that I like very much indeed. The next Regigigas was a promo that came around in the Regigigas Colossal box in February 2009 as Diamond and Pearl 40, the promo card. And this was the other really good Regigigas, which saw play with the level X. Free colourless energy, 40 damage, but you can drag one of your opponent's bench Pokemon active before doing the damage. 4 energy 80 was fine, that would KO a whole bunch of stuff that saw a lot of play at the time, like Uxie for instance. But make no mistake about it, dragging something active was great. This was probably the best Regigigas to use with the level X, although we did play the one from Legends Awakened as well. And given that it was a promo and you had to buy the box, you only got one, when Regigigas was at its height, this was not a cheap card. We then got a promo Regigigas, which came around in Pop 9. That was a set of cards. You would get a little booster pack with 2 cards and an energy when you turned up to League and played a few games. And this was, well, there wasn't one date, but it was between March and September 2009. It was a nice little promo card. It looked very cool. Free energy, 20 damage paralysis on a coin flip. 4 energy, 50 damage. Plus 20 more for each head you can flip from 2 coins. It's fine, but it was never particularly impressive. The next Regigigas we got was actually Regigigas FB, which came around in Supreme Victors in August 2009. Now, this was an SP Pokemon, so it meant that you could, in theory, use all of those extra little tricks you could use for all the others, like energy gain and like Poker Turn. The problem was we just had better SP Pokemon. This never really got up to the top level of your SP Pokemon. First attack, free colourless energy, 30, heal as much damage as you did, and then 4 energy, 20 damage times the number of different types of Pokemon SP you have in play. 120 if you had 6 different types. It could be fun, and it certainly was doable. It's just a bit too expensive compared to other SP Pokemon. Maybe if it was for free energy and we could have done it for energy gain and double colourless energy, but frankly, we'll never know. And then my personal favourite of the Regigigases, yes, more than level X, was the EX that came around in Next Destinies in February 2012, and incidentally did get a beautiful full art in the same set. This was a card with a lot of potential. Big basic 180 HP, free colourless energy, 60 damage, or 80 and 20 to yourself, originally mistranslated by a prominent website as 60 damage, and then as many times 20 as you like to yourself and to your opponent. So you can do 120 to them, 60 to yourself, etc. Wasn't quite as good. But then 4 energy, 50 damage, plus 10 more for each damage counter on this Pokemon. I actually made top 33, I bubbled, so angry, at the largest tournament in Europe with this, playing it with Jirachi to accelerate energy and the recently released in the same set, Mewtwo. Of course, it was basically just a rubbish version of CMT, it turned out, but don't tell anyone, because I loved this deck. It was one of my favourite decks I have ever played in my life, and I miss it, ladies and gentlemen. I miss it. Also won a city championship with it, incidentally. This was a very, very good card that then got overshadowed by Tornadus EX and basically never saw any play ever again. But shh, I loved him. Our next Regigigas came around in Phantom Forces 2.5 years later in November 2012. Yeah, they really made us wait for it, unfortunately, which was a little bit sad. And the artwork was beautiful, bending over that Route 9 sign, but the card just never saw any play. 3 colourless energy, 80 damage, reduced damage done during your opponent's next turn by 40, 4 energy, 100. At its very worst, Regigigas is a high HP Pokemon with terrible attacks that are way too expensive. This represents the worst of Regigigas. We then had a promo in the Pikachu EX Legendary Collection. That was the X and Y 82 promo, which again was beautiful but not particularly good. Now, I do like that whenever you attach an energy card, you heal 20 damage, but I don't like 100 damage for 4 energy, and even then there's a 25% chance it does nothing. Flip 2 coins, if both of them are tails, this attack does nothing. Ouch. Once again, a potentially interesting card where the attacks are too gosh darned expensive. And then the last Regigigas, the most recent Regigigas we've got, was a little while ago now. It did come around in Crimson Invasion in November 2017, and I still contend that this had a lot of potential. As all the Regis in this set were leaking and being revealed, I was scheming for this deck. Now, the ability said that you cannot attack unless you had Regirock, Regice, and Registeel on your bench, but then again, you could always use something like a Alola Muck to turn that ability off, so that was fine. And then 5 energy, 160, discard a stadium in play. You'd need double colourless energy and some energy acceleration. I don't know, maybe something like Malamar or Kiawe here. Again, it proved too expensive. I tested this. I tried. I really tried. But the reality is, it was never good enough. They even gave him his very own tool card, Ancient Crystal, which reduced damage done by 30 to any of the 4 Regis. Even that, ladies and gentlemen, just couldn't stand up. I love Regigigas. He is my very favourite of all the legendary Pokemon, and I've always wanted him to be good. The Level X was one of the very best decks in that particular format, and the EX certainly had potential, and I saw a bit of success with it. Outside of that, Regigigas has generally been a big basic with attacks that are just too gosh darned expensive. But it's happened a couple times. It could happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a part of the video where I would like you to share your Regigigas stories. Tell me your favourite Regigigas ever. Tell me times you've played it in tournaments. Go nuts! But do remember the most important rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays for some more Wassy action. But by far the most important rule, as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio. Oh, tell me which Pokemon you want me to do every card ever of.